Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of It Came From the Sump, our series dedicated to the Necromunda Community Event, co-hosted by Dr. Drybrush and myself. It Came From the Sump as a vehicle-based narrative Necromunda campaign set in the Sump Sea of Necromunda, and on today's episode, Battle Report number 4, my two friends Big Puka as well as Warlord Ace will be throwing it down in an intelligence gathering scenario from the book The House of Shadows. My buddy Big Puka is returning once again with the Deep Ones, his House Delaque gang. They just got done fighting another battle over the weekend against my gang, the Rusty Nails, in order to liberate one of his side guys. Her name is Drala, the Rust Devil DeVille. She managed to fight all 4 members of my Slaver Guild entourage and earned her freedom. And this game will be fighting against my buddy Warlord Ace, who's playing the Velvet Privateers of House Van Saar. Now, both these gangs have really lost the very first round of their first week of battle reports on our channel and as well as in our campaign. So this time, both will be facing off against each other, hoping to score a victory for themselves in this battle report. Now, because this video is a little bit more of a narrative, deeper dive type of video, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that we can click and navigate to the part of the battle report that is interesting to you. Now, with that being said, we'll play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you photos as well as rosters for both gangs, and we'll come back for the scenario rules right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the scenario rules for this one. This one is called the Intelligence Gathering Scenario. It can be found in the House of Shadows, which is a supplement from the Delaque. If you guys also notice in the background as well, I also have an overhead shot now. I have some graphic overlays on some of the battlefields. That way you guys can see exactly where the fighters are located at. Makes it a little bit easier for players to see as well as identify who these fighters are on the tabletop. So let me know if you guys like this graphic overlay that I've done my battle reports. It was inspired by Double Skull Wargaming, the way he does his battle reports. I thought it'd be really helpful for you guys. Alright, so for the battlefield in this one, there are no mounted fighters or Wells vehicles, and in this scenario, the Deep Ones are the attackers, and the Velvet Privateers are the defenders. Now for the crews, the Deep Ones will have custom selection 10, while the Velvet Privateers have random selection 10. Now for deployment, the defender deploys first, dividing the table into 4 quadrants. Upper left-hand corner is quadrant 1, upper right-hand corner is quadrant 2, bottom left-hand corner is quadrant 3, and bottom right-hand corner is quadrant 4. Now, the defender must place at least one fighter into each quadrant, and then the attacker then deploys their entire crew, each fighter within 2 inches of the battlefield edges and at least 6 inches from a defending fighter. If possible, they also must be within 12 inches of another fighter from their crew. Now, the game tactics in this one is Dr. Drybrush's weekly complication, which is the Voiceless Choir. Now, in this scenario, we have one trigger word that is assigned by each player for their opponent, and if their opponent uses this trigger word or phrase, a randomly chosen fighter from the enemy gang suffers the insanity condition, and at the end of each round the fighter regains their control. Now the trigger words for my buddy Warlord Ace is where's the tape measure. My buddy Warlord Ace has a really hard time finding a tape measure on our battle reports. He's always asking where it's at, so my buddy Big Puka used that for his trigger word against Warlord Ace. Now at the same time, my buddy Big Puka, he is from the Aina, he is from Hawaii, and he likes to say "Chee-hoo" all the time as his little war cry whenever he does stuff. So whenever single time he says that, my buddy Warlord Ace decides to use that as the trigger word for that player as well. Now for ending the battle, when all 5 spy devices have, what ends up happening in this battle report, of course, that the idea is that each of the fighters are trying from the Talos Delaque are trying to hide spy devices into each area as well, using the Underhive Spies special rule. So when all 5 spy devices are placed, or when only one gang has fighters left in the battlefield, that pretty much ends the battle. Now the victory conditions is if the attacker places all 5 of their spy devices, they are the winners, and the defender wins if the attacker voluntarily bottles out, or the defender has fighters remaining on the battlefield. Now for the Underhive Spy special rule, what ends up happening is that the Delaque will take a double action in order to plant their spying device, and if this fighter is within 6 inches of one of the battlefield corners or within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield, and no enemy fighters can draw a line of sight to this fighter, the Delaque fighter may then plant the spying device. And in a win, the attacker must place 1 spy device within 6 inches of each corner of the battlefield and within 6 inches of the battlefield center. Now let's talk about the rewards on this one. If for credits, you earn 2d6 times 10 credits if the attacker places all their spy devices. So if the Delaque match do that, they get that amount of money. D6 10 credits goes to the defender, which is my friend Warlord Ace, who managed to win this one as well. Now for experience, each participant earns 1 point of experience, and each fighter from the House Delaque who managed to place at least 1 spy device also earns another experience point as well. For reputation, if the deep ones end up winning this scenario, they earn D3 times 3D3 reputation. Both gangs, both the Velvet Volunteers as well as the deep ones, will earn +1 reputation for fighting each other for the very first time. And of course, if any gang bottles out, they lose 1 point of reputation as well. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployments as well as battle plans real quick. So as you can see, we're playing on a 4x4 table, and we've also divided the table into the 4 quadrants represented by the yellow lines as well as the yellow numbers as well. Now for my buddy Warlord Ace from the Velvet Privateers, he on the upper left hand corner in the center of that industrial area, he has Titus, which is his Archaeotech, and right next to him of course is his Neotech Silas. On the upper right hand corner he put his leader Balderon. Bottom left hand corner he put 2 members of his Catalyst Mass Carnival, which is Fiordalise as well as Violante, and the bottom right hand corner he put his Augmech Balderon as well as his Tech Jax. Meanwhile, my buddy Big Puka for his House Delaque Deep Ones gang. On the left hand side he put 3 of his fighters. On the left hand side he put Sharagon the 10 Eyes, his leader, as well as Shavralai, his Piscean Spectre, as well as his prospect Drala, the Rust Devil Deville as well. And on the top right hand corner he has his 2 gangers, Feral Rod as well as Ichabod the Arachna. In the center of the second quadrant he has his champion, his Not Gould Astroloth the Mirelurk, and the bottom right hand corner he also has the 2 members of his Amiato Coven with Waibashi Bellis as well as Subashi Quietus. Now as for the battle plan on this one, I'm not really sure what the battle plan is going to be on this scenario because I'm just taking photos. I'm not really playing in this scenario, so my friends didn't tell me their battle plans. But for the most part, I'm assuming what's going to happen is that the deep ones are going to try to swarm the areas, try to get to the corners as quickly as possible to plant their leasing devices, and the vans are going to try to stop them as best they can. So the bottom left hand corner here is the close-up of the deployment for the Velvet Privateers. As you can see, we have the 2 members of the Catalyst Carnival. On the left hand side we have Fiordalise Menagina, the Mass Killer. On the right hand side we have Violante, the Mind Fright. On the bottom right hand corner, taking the point, we have Balderon the Augmech, that is the champion's armed with a plasma gun, and right behind him is the Tech Jax, who's basically packing a hotshot last gun. In the upper right hand corner, we have Ralderon the Prime. He's got armored body glove, flak armor, and a combat pistol, which goes last gun, as well as a melta gun. He's also got the fast shot ability. Also put an infra sign in that bad boy too, so that character is extremely dangerous. And there's a close-up of the left-hand side of the battlefield with the Archaeotech Titus, who's got a rad beamer, and right next to him, of course, is Silas, the Neotech, who's armed with a hand flamer, as well as flak armor, as well as a graph cutter. Meanwhile, here's the close-up of the deep ones. On the far left-hand side on the bottom, we have the Shish Chevrolet, which is the Piscean Spectre, with his paired segmented claws. He's also got Divination with Future Sight, as well as the Warp Whispers. Right next to him, of course, is Drala, the Rust Devil Deville, which is the Psygeist, which has defeated my gang in the previous scenario. In the pit fights, she's got Mesh Armor, Auto Pistol, Psychomancer's Harness. She's got paired Psychomantic Claws. She also has the Pyromancer ability with Fire Shield, Molten Bolt, as well as the Scouring. The reason why she has a second ability is because of the alliance with the Amiado Coven from House Tide. On the right hand side is Sharagon with the 10 Eyes, Mesh Armor, Long Rifle with Infrared Sight, Chameleonic Cloak, also has the Chronomancy Discipline with Flicker, Zen Shooters, and also has the Evade skill. Deployed in the bottom right hand corner of the battlefield is the Amiado Coven, led by Waibashi Bellish, who's in the back there next to that blue container, and taking point Usubashi Quietus, which is the Amiado Null. And that guy also has a bolt gun and power sword, respirator. He's also got the second null ability, and the Waibashi, of course, is the telepath. She has mind control, iron will, as well as inspirational leader special rules. In the upper hand corner, we have two more gangers. On the right hand side, the character's name is Ichabod the Arachna. He is a ghost, he's armed with a last gun. And right next on the left hand side is Feral Arad, which is a ghost, he's armed with a shotgun with solid scanner ammo. And sneaking on into the battlefield using the From the Shadow special rule, right in the middle of the industrial tanks, a couple inches away from the leader of the Raldron, from the leader of the Velvet Privateers, is Astaroth the Mirelurk, the Nocghoul, armed with mesh armor as well as serpent fangs. He's also got auto pistol as well as the catfall skill. And that pretty much makes up deployment for this one. So at the end of total deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Big Puka as well as my friend Warlord Ace roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 1, and House Delaque, the deep ones, actually managed to get the initiative on this one, so my buddy Big Puka will be going first. And here's an overhead shot of the entire of the battlefield where all the fighters are laid out, so that way you can see exactly how the table is, of course, going to proceed over the course of the battle. Alright, so from the very action phase, the very first thing that Big Puka decides to do is to activate Astaroth the Mirelurk, which is his Nocghoul. He decides to declare a charge directly against Raldoron as well. So he rolls a d6 for the charge, ends up getting 3 on that one, gets a grand total of 9 inches in total in order to close the distance, which is not going to be a problem for him at all. As you can see in this close-up, Astaroth the Mirelurk goes directly into the face of Raldoron, the leader of the Velvet Privateers, and because of his Serpent's Fangs, his characteristic, his charge, as well as the paired special weapons trait, he ends up getting 6 attacks on close combat after he charges. He's striking at weapon skill 2+, striking at strength 6 with 1 damage apiece with rending as well as phase, which means that, of course, Raldoron gets no armor saves whatsoever. So because he needs to attack 6 attacks needing +2s to hit, and he manages to actually get 4 hits on that one. Managed to cause 1 wound with just normal, as well as 3 with rending, with 7 wounds total, equaling 5 injury dice on this one. So ended up being with 1 flesh wound as well as 4 serious injuries. And because Astaroth did the charge on this one, just kind of finishes him off real quick with a coup de grace, putting Raldoron directly out of action. And of course, Raldoron gets an out cold result for the first part. So because the Astaroth also earns 3 experience points for himself, as well as first blood being spilled in this battle report. And Raldoron, of course, will make a full recovery at the end of the battle report, but at the same time, though, my buddy Warlord Ace just lost his leader, which is one of his best fighters in his gang, and now the upper rank quadrant is completely exposed. Alright, so for Warlord Ace, for his next activation, he says a group activation with Boldron. Boldron also has a group activation with Jax as well, so the very first person who's going to move in this activation is going to be Jax. So Jax takes a simple action to move forward 4 inches across that chemical tank directly to the top of the wall, just kind of walking and balancing himself to the very edge. And by doing this, Jax is a beautiful sight over the Untitled Coven down below him as well. And he takes a basic action to fire his hotshot last gun directly at Waibashi Bellis, which is the Untitled telepath in this coven. Now, he is firing on a 3+ ballista skill, and he also gets +1 to hit due to the short range modifier on his hotshot last gun, which is going to be really handy because at the same time, Waibashi Bellis is right next to that blue cargo container, which provides a -1 modifier for partial cover. So he's got to roll a 3 in order to hit her. He strikes at he manages to get that shot no problem with a 4 on the roll. At the same time, no ammo roll comes up for that shot. He actually rolls a 5 up in order to wound against Waibashi, and Waibashi unfortunately fails her armor save with a refractor field, so because of that she does lose a wound. Luckily for Waibashi though, she didn't make an initiative test before to see if she falls off the dock directly into the Sump Sea, but she managed to pass on her initiative test on a 5 up, so everything is good. She's just currently pinned right now and is also bleeding out. So continuing with the group activation, Balderon decides to go next, taking a basic action open fire with their plasma gun on the low sitting against Subashi Quietus, which is the null who's on the left hand side of the screen here. Now, Balderon has a 2+ weapon skill, and he also gets a +2 modifier to his shooting action because Subashi Quietus actually falls in the short range of the plasma gun as well. So when Balderon actually rolls a fire, he rolls a 6 to hit with a firepower dice of 1 on the shot. He's striking at strength 5 with -1 AP and 2 damage against Subashi's 3 toughness, requiring a 3 to wound. He managed to wound on a 4 up, and Subashi, of course, does not get an armor save because of that. Fails his armor save because of that -1 armor penetration. Does suffer 2 wounds as well. He suffers a flesh wound as well as a serious injury, and also that's an experience point for Balderon for putting that serious injury onto him. Now, Subashi needs to make an initial test to see if he falls in the sump, and he must pass on a 4 up, but unfortunately for Big Puka, he rolls a 2 on his dice roll, so because of that, Subashi actually just goes right directly into the drink as well. And what that's going to happen, of course, is that he's got to take a strength test in the ender phase to see if he actually falls and gets, drowns inside the Sump Sea. And for his second action, Balderon actually just kind of drops down from the top of the fuel tank to the ground level. That way he can close the distance and open fire if he needs to, and do an assault if required. So jumping over to the left hand side of the table, Big Puka goes next. He decides to do a group activation with Shower Guy of the 10 Eyes, who also does a group activation with Drala the Rust Devil Deville, as well as Shish Shiralai, his Piscean Spectre. And he decides to go with his Piscean Spectre first for his group activation. So for Shish Shiralai, takes a double action or declare a charge directly against Fiordalise Menegina, which is on the very bottom of the table, which of course is the mass killer for this fighter. Rolls a d6 for to determine his charge distance, and combined with his 8-inch, ends up with a combined distance of 8 inches. And because that goes charging across the battlefield, stopping just 3 inches shy of actually reading Fiordalise Menegina, or to strike at her with his paired Psychomantic Claws with that 3-inch versatile attack range. So in this close-up, of course, we got Shish Shiralai dropping just 3 inches shy, so that way they could take full advantage of their paired Psychomantic Claws with that 3-inch versatile attack. When combined with the charge, the attack's characteristics, and the paired weapon trait on those paired Psychomantic Claws, Shish Shiralai has 10 attacks, striking at weapon skill 3, both phase as well as shock on this one as well. Ends up rolling in order to hit, gets 5 hits and 1 shock hit from those 6 attacks in total that they managed to pull off as well. Now, in order to wound Fiordalise, he needs a wound at a strength 5 against toughness 3, meaning he needs 3 up in order to wound. Not so lucky on the wounds that they did for the hit, so Shish Shiralai actually managed to get 3 wounds as well as 1 wound from shock directly on Fiordalise as well. When they roll up from the injury dice, managed to put a flesh wound as well as an out of action, as well as at the same time also putting an out of action result on that, earning a +2 experience points for Shish Shiralai as well. Interesting enough, of course, because of the fact that the mass killer got taken out of action, Violante, the the Mind Frayed has to actually take an infectious terror special roll in order to see if they can pass their cool test. If they actually fail their cool test, Shish Chevrolet will also have to take a nerve test as well. It's actually kind of a cool one, cool little game mechanic from the Mind Frayed. However, though, Violante managed to pass 11 plus on the roll, and so does Shish Chevrolet. Barely passes with their cool test without a 7-up. So because of that, both those fighters are still located on the left-hand side. No one breaks. Unfortunately, for Fortaleza Medellina, she'll go out of action for this one. So continuing on with the group activation, Drala the Rest Devil Deville decides to go next, and she declares a charge against Titus the Archaeotech, which you can see in the background there next to that little pipe as well. Rolls a 2 on the charge dive, giving Drala Deville 10 inches in total in order to close the distance, but she stops 3 inches away of reaching Titus in order to use the versatile trait on her Parapsychomantic Claws, which is a great versatile trait for these weapons. So she goes surging forward on her Parapsychomantic Claws, just shorting 3 inches short of getting into Titus the Archaeotech. With her combined attacks when charging, her Cax characteristic, as well as the para trait on her Psychomantic Claws, she ends up with 6 attacks, striking at weapon skill 4+. She also has phase as well as shock weapons traits on her Psychomantic Claws. When she rolls, she actually ends up hitting all 6 attacks, getting 3 4s as well as 3 5s. So she's just rolling hot on those attacks. So with those 6 attacks, she's striking at a strength 4 against a toughness 3, which means that she needs a 3+ in order to wound. In the end, she managed to get 4 wounds in total, which ignore armor saves. Of course, she managed to get 3 serious injuries, as well as a 1 out of action result. So because of that, with those psychic claws tearing directly through his body, manages to clip his spine. So Titus the Architect suffers a spinal injury, and because of that, Titus goes crashing to the ground, and he automatically goes in recovery as he goes out of action as well. So he'll miss out on his next battle report. And to add insult to injury, because he suffered a spinal injury, he loses 1 to his strength characteristic, dropping down to strength 2. At the same time, Drala also earns 3 additional experience points for putting someone out of action, as well as a bonus point for taking a champion out of action as well. Unfortunately for Warlord Ace, Silas the Neotech also needs to take a nerve test with a cool of 8+, so it's going to be kind of rough for that guy. So the Neotech, of course, rolls his 2d6, rolls a 7+, and fails his nerve test by 1. So because he has to flee directly away from Drala the Rust Devil Deville, ends up going right 5 inches, and unfortunately by scooting to the right like that in order to get away from Drala Deville, puts him directly in the crosshairs of Sharagon the Ten Eyes, who's going to be activating next. So finish out the last of the group activation, we have Sharagon the Ten Eyes, who's the leader of the Deep Ones. As you can see, he's got a beautiful line of sight directly against Silas, which is the Neotech. So because of that, Sharagon the Ten Eyes takes a basic action to aim with his long rifle. And the reason why is because he wants to be able to get a +1 to hit, and the reason why is because we are counting that partial cover of that wall, so there's a -1 to hit modifier as well. But at the same time, though, he's got a ballistic skill of 3+, meaning he's a 2-up in order to hit. Rolls a 4-up in order to hit Silas, and also triggers knockback against the Neotech as well. The long rifle strikes at strength 4 with -1 AP and 2 damage due to knockback against Silas's toughness of 3. Tyler, of course, needed 3 up in order to wound. Managed to wound, and Silas fails his armor roll with a 2, equaling 2 damage on that one. Managed to put a flesh wound as well as a serious injury directly onto the young Neotech, also earning some bonus experience points for Sharagon the Ten Eyes as well. So he is currently laying on the ground. He's got a flesh wound. He's also bleeding out, and he will need to roll up on the end phase to see exactly what ends up happening to him. So Warlord Ace activates next. He decides to activate Violante's Mind Frayed in order to try to escape the Piscean Spectre, but he then says the magical trigger words, "Where is my tape measure?" Unfortunately, Violante gains the insanity condition, so because that she does fail her insanity test, and Big Puka has full control of Violante, so because of that, Big Puka decides to move Violante directly into the Sump Sea. Violante unfortunately fails her strength test, so she automatically goes out of action as well. So another death from the members of the Velvet Privateers. Luckily, though, for my buddy Warlord Ace, though, this is part of his delegation from his alliance, so no real harm, no foul. So unfortunately for my buddy Warlord Ace, he has no more fighters left on the battlefield, so because that Big Puka has the rest of the end phase, action phase on this one. So because he decides to activate Ichabod the Arachno, which is Ganger of the last gun in the upper right hand corner, decides to take a double action order to plant a spy device, since he's within 6 inches of the battlefield corner, managed to plant that as well as earn himself another experience point. Immediately after that, Big Puka activates Feral Rod, which is one of his fighters armed with a shotgun. He decides to make him do a double movement, directly moving to the left 10 inches, so that we can go to the opposite corner of the tabletop. So there's a close-up of Feral Rod, making 10 inches directly across the top of the table. He's almost about the center point of the top edge of the tabletop. My buddy Big Puka is trailing on taking this fighter, having go directly to the upper left-hand corner, so that way he could also plant a spy device as well. So for his next activation, Big Puka activates Waibashi Bellas, which of course is his Amiato telepath. There's a basic action to stand up because she got pinned earlier, and he decides he's going to try to take a basic action to cast Mind Control against Jax, which the tech is armed with the Hotshot Last Gun across from her. So as you can see in this photo, she's got a perfect line of sight directly for him. She has a willpower of 5+, so because of that, my buddy Big Puka takes the 2d6, rolls his willpower test, and also gets a 6 on this one. Now, because he was so happy about doing this, he does trigger the Voiceless Choir by screaming out "Chee-hoo!" after he got his 6 up on his willpower test, and of course the Voiceless Choir activates. So because of this, Waibashi falls victim to the Voiceless Choir and also falls victim to the Insanity condition. My friend Warlord Ace rolls, of course, and managed to secure possession of this fighter. So because reciprocity is a thing my buddy Warlord Ace decides to have Waibashi Bellas take a quick little swim directly into the Sump Sea. Unfortunately for that telepath, she does fail her strength test, so she too succumbs to the Sump Sea and sinks directly to the bottom, and up with the out of action result as well. For Big Puka's very last activation, he decides to activate Subashi Quietus, the very last fighter on his tabletop, because he wants to try to do a crawl double action to get back on the dock again, so that way he doesn't drown. Unfortunate for him though, because he's already in the Sump Sea, he does need to take a strength test to see if he can manage to do that. Fails his strength test, so just like that, the Sump Sea consumes another fighter as Subashi Quietus drowns and goes out of action. So with that, we go directly to the end phase, and the Delaque, of course, managed to pass their bottle test no problem. For the Vansar, however, not so much. Actually fails their bottle test, and they also suffer -1 to the reputation because of that as well. Which means at the beginning of the next round, Warlord Ace will only take a cool test for every one of his fighters to see if they stick around. Now when it does come for the recovery rolls for the end phase, Warlord Ace rolls recovery for the Neotech Silas and rolls another flesh wound. So because that Neotech does flip over, he'll be able to activate again. Unfortunately, he's -2 to his toughness right now, so he's only toughness 1, which makes him extremely easy to wound. But he can still move, he can still fight, and he can also still cause problems. And to also add a little bit of ice into the cake, managed to pass his nerf test as well, managed to get rid of his broken condition, and earns another bonus experience point because of that. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the tabletop at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, we have our little graphic here. The green represents the deep ones, while the magenta represents the Velvet Privateers. As you can see, things are not looking good right now for the Velvet Privateers. They have 1 Neotech, 1 Augmech, as well as 1 Tech left on the tabletop. Not to mention the Neotech has -2 to his toughness due to flesh wounds. Meanwhile, the deep ones still have Sharagon the 10 Eyes in the left-hand side, as well as Drella Deville, the Rust Devil Deville in the upper left-hand corner. We also got Shish Chevrolet in the bottom right-hand corner as well, and we also have the Gangers, Feral Rod, as well as Ichabod and Astaroth the Mirelurk in the upper right-hand corner as well. However, not wanting to lose any more fighters that he currently has, because he doesn't want to lose more fighters for next week's battle reports, Warlord Ace decides to call the game after 1 turn, just because he's only got 3 fighters left on the tabletop, and he knows he can't pull off a victory, not with the odds stacked against them the way they are. So because he decides to call it quits now before he takes any losses. He's already got the -1 to his reputation already, because he was forced to take a ball test, which he failed, so he figures no harm, no foul. Now, in exchange for his early surrender, however, we decide that Big Puka does get to plant a couple of spying devices on the tabletop. We all decided to agree that yes, you could put a spy device on the bottom left-hand corner, the top left-hand corner, but the bottom right-hand corner not so much, and that's because without a doubt, the Vansar control that quarter as well. So because that, Big Puka gives +1 experience point on showering on the 10 eyes for planting the spy device there, as well as from the center, as well as +1 for Feral Rod for putting a spy device in quadrant number 1, and Shishrailai also earns another experience point for putting a spy device in quadrant number 3. And since the Vansar, like I said before, control quadrant number 4, the Delaque get nothing there. So with that being said, we're going directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so now it's time for the post game. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for battle report number 4 of our Necromunda Community Event. This is once again fought between my two friends Big Puka as well as Warlord Ace. So let's start off with Warlord Ace's gang, the Velvet Privateers of House Vansar. Now for his injuries, he lost 4 fighters in this battle report. Raldoron, Fjordalis Menagina, his Mass Killer, and Violante, his Mind Frayed, all suffered out cold results. So because of that, the leader as well as the 2 members of the House Catalyst Carnival, they make a full recovery no problem. Titus, the Architect, however, goes into recovery for suffering a spinal injury. He loses 1 to his strength, so because it drops his strength 2. So because of this, Titus will miss out his next battle report because he's recovery as well. Now, while members of the gang did gain experience points, nobody actually advanced this time around. And from their territory, they only have the settlement. They got 1 reputation from their settlement as well as 10 credits from that settlement as well. And when they roll their 2d6 to see if they recruit any new fighters, they roll a 6, recruiting a subtech named Onaya as well. Now, of course, this does trigger the event for the drawback with the House Catalyst Carnival, meaning that, of course, every single time you have a juvie, you have to roll a d6, and if you fail that d6 roll, that juvie becomes a mind frame. You never see them ever again. Luckily for my buddy Warlord Ace, though, didn't manage to fail that test, so because that, his juvie is perfectly fine. So there are no drawbacks, and nothing was triggered for the House Catalyst Alliance, so because that strong alliance is still maintained. Now, on the trading post, he earned 10 credits from his territory as well as the 10 credits he had in his stash for a grand total of 20 credits in total. With his 20 credits, he purchased flak armor as well as powered last pistols for his brand new subtech Onaya. So Onaya now has a 5-up armor save, and she's also packing twin last pistols as well. Now for his reputation, earns 1 point of reputation from his territory as well as 1 point of reputation for fighting against the deep ones for the very first time. Unfortunately for Warlord Ace, though, he did fail his bottle test, so because it does lose 1 point of reputation, which brings his grand total reputation to 2 points of reputation in total. Unfortunately, his record now is at 0 wins as well as 2 losses, and his new gang rank now is at 1,765 points. So now let's talk about Big Puka as well as his gang, the Deep Ones. For his injuries, he suffered 2, Waibashi Bellis as well as Subashi Quietus, which are the members of his Anmiano Coven. They make full recoveries no problem, so no harm, no foul there. Now for advancements, with all the experience points he gained, Shower Guy and the 10 Eyes decided to level up to level 1, spending 8 experience points in order to increase his toughness characteristic from 3 to 4. So now because of that, the leader of this gang is now toughness 4, also increases his credit value by 30 credits as well. Now from his settlement, from his territories, he earned a settlement from before, earns 1 point of reputation from that, and when he actually was going to use the d6 roll to determine how many credits he got, he decided to use Stainlip's Useful Life special rule, which is his Whisper Merchant that he recruited in the last round of the game. So because they automatically get 60 credits from that settlement, at the same time using 1 of the 6 Whispers that Stainlip supplies as a hanger-on. Now, when he got to his territory to see what he earned from winning this battle, we, of course, drew a deck of playing cards. He got the Jack of Diamonds and actually got a Generatorium as a territory as well. Now, it doesn't give him any income, but what it does do, though, it allows him to create pitch black conditions on the battlefield any time that he wants to. So because of that, it could be quite deadly for the rest of us taking place in the campaign, because he can purchase infrared sights as well as photo goggles and then turn off the lights on us, which is very much a House Delaque thing to do. Now from his alliance, of course, he still maintains a strong alliance with House Ties, so that's not a risk at all. From the training post, he got 60 credits from the territories as well as 80 credits from the scenario, and when combined with the 25 credits he has from his stash, gave him 165 credits in total. With those 165 credits, he spent 90 credits to recruit a brand new psychoteric thrall called the Oculoid. That way they could actually use that fighter to trigger psychic abilities through him up to 12 inches away. So very, very dangerous. The guy also has a auto gun as well. When it comes from where he came from, they decided to actually pick House Orlok for the group is where he comes from. So that way House Orlok fighters suffer 2 willpower tests as well as a leadership test within range of the Oculoid. So that guy is quite dangerous. At the same time, my buddy Big Book also spent 50 credits in order to recruit a rogue doc named Dr. Voss Dargon, so that way he also has that hanging around because his reputation increased dramatically at the end of this battle report. He then took the 25 remaining credits he had left over and decided to place that directly into the stash. Now for his reputation, he has 1 point reputation from his territories as well as 1 point reputation for fighting against the Velvet Privateers for the very first time, and he also gets 3 points of experience from the scenario, rolling a 5 on the D3 on that one, which brings his grand total reputation to 15, so he is definitely the most reputable of all the gangs in our campaign so far. His new record now is at 2 wins and 1 loss, and his new gang rank now is at 1,955 points. So there you guys have it. That is battle report number 4 of our Necromunda Community Event, co-hosted by Dr. Drybrush and myself. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. And also, if you're interested in taking part in the Necromunda Community Event, please let us know what you're doing. Give us links to posts, links to videos, links to your guys' social media. We'd love to see all the amazing things you guys are doing with Necromunda, especially if you decide to participate in our community event as well. So I'm Commander Cheapskate. That's good to do for this video. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.